Hello, Abnormal Investigations. This is the second drop today. It is the 8 o'clock p.m. drop, and I hope that you will enjoy this one. Don't forget, we have an alternate channel called AI Seeking the Truth. It's got some pretty good content over there. We're growing that channel. It's growing fast, and if you hurry up and subscribe, you can be one of the first members to join our new channel. Like I said, it's AI Seeking the Truth, and I'll put the link to it in the description underneath the links to support Hunter. I'm not going to lie. This is a strange thing for me to finally talk about after all these years. For the sake of mine and my brother's privacy, names and locations will be changed. For now, I will identify myself as Jake, and we will call my brother's name Justin and Jackson. About 6 years ago, my father passed away in a tragic car accident. He was dead on impact, is what they said. Didn't feel a thing. Although I did find some comfort in the fact he did not suffer. It was still a massive loss to my family. My father was a great man. He was an awesome father to his 4 boys and a loving husband to our mother. He had strong arms and a pure heart, going out of his way to improve the lives of everyone around him. He was there to teach and shape us in every step of growing up, and we all carry his best qualities in life. The summer after his passing, my oldest brother, James, suggested that we go camping to honor his memory. The 4 of us agreed, of course, setting aside our commitments, for one measly weekend was a small price to pay. It meant we could go do the thing he loved the most together. Personally, I had no conflicts, being a salary man that had weekends off anyways. James was between jobs at the moment and thought that the trip would be a good way to realign his energies. Justin had to simply cancel a few work meetings and explain multiple times to his partner that he wasn't allowed to go. That weekend was for us, only, or whatever. Jackson, however, had just gotten married to his wife about a month prior to our trip, so he had the hardest time getting away. She was still very much in the honeymoon phase and couldn't stand the thought of being apart for more than 24 hours. She's way too clingy, I thought, but that's neither here nor there. Anyway, when the time finally arrived, we had all gathered up in our old camping gear and piled into Jackson's SUV. The trip was going to take us about 2 hours, but we didn't mind. We used that time to catch up, laugh, and have a few roadies. No, we don't drink and drive. By the time we arrived at Dad's favorite campsite, the sun was already going down. The temperature was out there in the mountains. They drop real quick, and even faster at night. So we rushed to get our tent set up and our fire going. I, unfortunately, was very drunk. No, I had not been driving and ended up snapping one of my tent poles, leaving my shelter in a useless heap. Thankfully, James had my back and didn't mind sharing his tent with me. It was the only 2-person tent anyway, but still, it was kind of a gesture. Another hour passed, and we were all set up, sitting around the fire in the tent telling ghost story over s'mores. It couldn't have been more perfect. The cool night air was fresh, alive with chirping insects and the hooting of an owl. I think it was a buzz I had going on now because I had been drinking coffee and we had stopped drinking. And I had become the most drunk anyways. But I thought that owl sounded sick or something. Its hoot sounded like a gasp, a death rattle. I shook my head, clear of the morbid thoughts, and I looked up at the sky. The stars shimmered down upon us, bright and beautiful, as we enjoyed our brotherly bonding. Jackson and I both tried and failed miserably to tell scary stories. I couldn't stop laughing long enough to be ominous and spooky, while Jackson was simply just sitting there, laughing at the storytelling. He would constantly forget the lines and wasn't able to make any sense. We booed him lovingly until he stopped and gave up, opting instead to make s'mores. "Hey, Justin," said suddenly, quickly, putting on a serious expression. "Did Dad ever tell you guys about the creature out here?" There was a chorus of murmurs as well as we looked at each other confused. "Oh no, dude. I haven't heard that one. Jackson responded, crossing his arms. James and I agreed, pondering why hadn't we heard this story as well. Justin sighed deeply, looked up, meeting each of us in our eyes before he continued. It was my 18th birthday. He and I made a deal that to celebrate we would go camping, just the two of us. James rolled his eyes and smirked. Yeah, because you always needed extra help with everything, Cupcake. He had to teach you how to be more manly. Justin narrowed his eyes at the eldest brother and pointed the sharp end of the marshmallow skewer at him. Watch it, Buster. I'm not the one that ruined the whole tent because a snake scared the literal pee out of him. We all laughed as James put up his hands in defeat. All right, you got me there. Continue with your story, man. Justin took another few moments to look around us before he decided. We were done interrupting and continued. Anyway, we arrived here, of course. It's always been Dad's favorite spot. The second night out here, we started hearing this weird hooting noise. I kept trying to explain it was a sick or injured owl, but it just never sounded right. The third night, Dad came and woke me up. He was panicked, sweaty, the look in his eyes as he told me to grab my bag. It was the scariest freaking thing I've ever seen. He never answered my questions, just locked me in the car and grabbed what he could, and then put me in as fast as he could into the back seat from the front. I felt a twinge on the back of my neck as my brother spoke. Didn't I hear a sick-sounding owl earlier? After we started driving back, Dad began to speed as soon as we hit the main road. The ride was silent. Finally he turned to me, and he asked if I'd saw it. I told him no, of course, and he just nodded and looked back at the road. I never knew what it was that Dad had seen. The silence was deafening as he finished his story. Jackson sat still, not realizing his marshmallow was still on fire, burning. James broke the silence before I could. No way. Is that why we never came back here? I thought Dad just got too old and tried to keep roughing it like us and just couldn't do it no more. I nodded in agreement, just now realizing that he was correct. For the past 4 years, until my father's untimely passing, he had simply refused to go camping here again, no matter how much we begged. I'm surprised he never told you all that was the reason, Justin said softly. Then again, I bet he didn't want to sound like he was afraid. I'm not sure why, but I lifted my beer up at the moment and I smiled sadly. Well then, I said, this one's for you, Dad. We have come to reclaim your beloved campsite. Monsters be damned. My brothers all cheered and clinked their bottles and cans to mine as we all took a deep pull of our beverages. Later that night, Jackson and James put out the fire as Justin and I hid away the food in the bear bag. We all said good night and stumbled to our separate ways to our tents. As I unrolled my sleeping bag and got settled in, James entered the tent. His eyes were red and he looked absolutely beat. We gave it one last good night to each other and let the alcohol rock away as we all fell asleep, rustled, and snuggled in our tents. A few hours later, I awoke with a headache and a very full bladder. I quietly got up, trying my best not to disturb my sleeping brothers as I exited the tent, walking a good distance away to try to find a private spot to do my business. Once I had relieved myself, I picked up on a strange sound. No, wait, there was no sound. The woods were dead silent. My heart began to race as my camper's instincts kicked in. A silent forest is a deadly forest. I pressed my back up against a tree, and I had just peed on, and I stayed there and as still and as quiet as possible. Out of the dead silence there came a slight rustle and the hoot of what sounded like a sick owl. My blood went cold as I slowly glanced above me, the hair on the back of my neck raising up in a primitive warning. That's when I met eyes with it. This thing was in the tree. It was pale, its eyes black as the night, as it slowly crawled down the trunk of the tree toward me. Its long fingers and arms reached toward me, thin but lean with muscle. It opened its disgusting mouth, lined with rows of sharp teeth, and it let out that horrible noise again, louder this time, almost like it was taunting me. In that moment, with this horrible creature making its way to me, the flight instinct finally kicked in. I screamed bloody murder and began to hoof it, the thing hooting in the excitement as it chased behind me. I felt tears falling down my face. As I ran, my legs and lungs burned. My heart pounded. Right as I was almost back to the site, I felt something hit me square in the back. The monster had caught me. It had pounced and knocked me flat on my face. Its claws dug into me as I screamed again in pain. This time as I felt its teeth sink into the meat of my calf. I felt flesh and muscle tear as it jerked its head back. I couldn't run anymore. It had crippled me. I gave up. I had no energy to fight, no way to run. All I could do was lay there and wait as this thing started to eat me. It was ripping meat from my leg. In a sudden flash of red, Jackson appeared out of nowhere in his long johns, tackling the creature off of me. He screamed, "Run!" He then turned and planted the head of our hatchet between the thing's shoulder blades, causing it to shriek and a hoot again. I felt the arms of James and Justin lift me up, and all they was doing was dragging me as fast as they could to the SUV. They finally got me loaded. The drive to the hospital was a blur. I felt nauseous and coming in and out of consciousness as my brothers tried to keep me awake. Justin tying his shirt around my calf. I had lost lots of blood in the area of the bite, burning. "Get him up," he screamed. "Run!" And then he turned. That's all I could remember as I was in and out of consciousness. There was a lot of bite. There was a lot of blood, and it was burning really, really, really bad. When we got to the hospital, they had to amputate my leg due to the damage it was done, just below the knee. They blamed it on a bear trap. They said I stepped in a effing bear trap. I know what attacked me. I seen what attacked me. But they said it was a bear trap. How could a bear trap take out my whole calf and half of my leg? And how could it bite me over and over? I know what attacked me. But they said it was a bear trap. And when my brothers offered to take me back to where I'd been attacked to show them, they told us to stay away from there. That they had already retrieved the bear trap, that they wouldn't find it. What do you think about that, guys? I think that's a terrible story. If they blamed it on a bear trap, that's really bad. Bear trap, I don't believe would hit you as high as your calf. Plus, he says he saw it crawl down. His brother was also a witness to it. They did do a police report, but the police report was later dismissed as a, as we all hear too often, misidentified. They got scared in the woods, is what they said. So what do y'all think about this story? Let me know in the comments. I kind of have an opinion too, but I'm going to save it and see if y'all's is along with mine. So, until next time, guys, keep your head on a swivel and don't be something's dinner.